Good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you would please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please, Connie.
Terry Lautner.
Yes. Here.
Chris Mikowski is excused. Kyle Trevis.
Here.
Jeff Shaw.
Here.
Dave Darga.
Here.
And Jordan Gallagher is excused. Connie Preston here.
Thank you. Item 4, declaration of conflict of interest. If any board member has any conflict with any item this evening, now would be the time to declare that. Okay, seeing none, I'd like to move on to public comment. It's 6:01, and I would like to open public comment. The rules for public comment are, if you could direct your comments directly to the board. If you don't mind giving us your name and address, we would appreciate that. And you have 3 minutes. So, anybody? Come on up.
I've done this a couple times in my life. Hi, I'm Jody Mackey. First of all, 1058 Washington Street, Traverse City. I am an ADOC Marina slip holder. So, okay, good afternoon. As a marina slip holder for the past 5 years, I've learned a fair amount about how the marina communicates with boaters, and it's not much, to be honest. Basically, I pay $3,300 for 6 months of marina use. I get 1 mailed envelope with a contract to sign and return to keep my boat on a public dock funded by my and other slip holders' hard earnings, along with Michiganders' tax revenue. Emails are generally ignored until you forward them to the township, and if the harbor master is unavailable at the time a boater seeks information, they're out of luck. A powerless marina committee meets a few times a year, makes recommendations that are also ignored. It seems the message coming from the marina management is don't bother us and you'll find things out when they happen. I provided copies of emails I sent to the harbor master last August that were ignored for weeks until I forwarded them to the township supervisor. Mr. Shaw, you might recall that you agreed with my assessment at the time that 1 mailed letter a year was not appropriate communication, and you assured me that you would work with the harbor master to improve it. And then nothing happened, and just like every other year in January, I received my packet to renew with 0 information about the upcoming major changes to the marina. And so now I'm showing up in person to ask for some change. It seems like a publicly funded marina would be more attentive and concerned with the satisfaction of their members, and yet, like so many large entities where those in charge are not accountable to those who pay their salaries, it appears the marina members become a low priority and are considered a nuisance if they voice concern or ask questions. In fact, transient boaters receive a satisfaction survey from the DNR after their stay at Elmwood, and yet I have not once been asked about my marina experience. I have not seen or been asked to provide input for the evaluation of the harbor master and his staff. I have not been invited to any meetings that might shed light on the upcoming changes to our facility. I have not received a monthly newsletter with pertinent information. And when I do get an opportunity to talk with marina staff, including the harbor master, that information is often inaccurate, gets changed, or is forgotten. When I have an appointment of almost any kind, when I order takeout or simply shop somewhere, I get text reminders, emails, and satisfaction surveys. How is it that our marina staff in their newly upgraded facility are unable to implement similar communication techniques with boaters? Relying on curtly written signs posted in bathrooms as the main way to communicate has led to the Elmwood boating community to feel disrespected and harassed. The answer to resolving this unfortunate situation is simple. Bridge the gap by increasing communication and state a monthly newsletter. Use text reminders for important communications. Offer ways for boaters to learn about upcoming changes to the marina. And issue a survey to boaters annually that is reviewed and discussed by this board. When people feel valued and heard, mistrust and negativity is reduced. Communication is the key to a better Elmwood Township marina community. And I'd love to offer more if you would like to ask questions. I have insights a mile long. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Ann Welburn, 4215 Bramblewood, Traverse City. We are required to follow the word of the contract specifically. I just wonder why we signed a contract that said pump outs were $10, but we're being charged $20. And the answer we received is the board told, the board approved it. To me, a contract should be honored. We've had 4 pump outs since we've been there. We have 2 on record, but I just think that you should honor your contract because I'm being forced very much to honor it also.
Thank you. Any other? Okay. 6:05, I'd like to close public comment. Consent calendar. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with in one board motion without discussion. Any member of the public, board, or staff may ask that any item of the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. This evening, we do not have a treasurer's report, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Planning and zoning, fire report. We got a last-minute harbor master's report and minutes from our 6/12/23 meeting. Also, post-audit invoices dated 6/15/23 through 6/30/23. Any member of the public that would like anything removed and placed elsewhere in the agenda? Any member of staff or the board? Okay, seeing none, I'd look for a motion.
I move to approve the consent calendar minus the treasurer's report.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Agenda approval. I'd like to add one little thing, item 10C. I'd like to add the intermunicipality committee resolution that you guys have in there too.
That's the one we just got?
Yeah.
It's on our table?
Yeah, I think I put it, yes, it was on the table. Everybody else that hadn't got their packets, I put it in there, but,
Right.
yep. Any other changes? Okay, need a motion?
I move to approve the agenda with the addition of resolution 12 for the, whatever it was called.
Intermunicipality committee resolution.
Add that to 10C.
Okay. We have a motion, do we have support?
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Reports and presentations, you got your supervisor's report. I just want to comment, our harbor master did have 2 heart attacks last week. He is recovering. He put the information in this report to you guys. The other item that I wanted to mention is Sarah Claren and I are dealing with our federal attorney from the settlement that we had with Frank Nover. There's been a couple of issues, and we're trying to make sure that he has met the requirements of our agreement. So we're dealing with that. So hopefully there won't have to be any enforcement issues or anything coming in front of you guys, but we'll keep you informed. So, and that's, I think, all I got for supervisor's report. Any trustee remarks? I will say one more thing, too. We don't have a treasurer's report, but Chris worked with Steve Claren, our consultant, and invested as he suggested, and she'll have, it's amazing, the difference. So she'll have that report for you next month, but it's doing really, really, really well for us.
Like 18,000.
18,000 last month we made in interest.
Compared to a
Oh,
few
and
hundred.
reinvested our funds? Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so that's, that's what we paid him. So in 1 month, we paid for his services. So, engineers report. Ken, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, maybe a
Okay.
quick update.
Okay.
We've got a couple projects in the works. Brewery Creek parking lot, everything's been designed, contract documents put together. We're waiting on an Eagle permit for wetlands. Because we got to clean out those existing stormwater basin. So the Eagle permit should be in sometime this month.
17th, she said, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. So hopefully
week from
after
today.
that, we should be ready to go out for bids on that project and get it going.
Okay.
So.
Any questions for Ken on Brewery Creek? Okay, I know you'll be back up in a couple of minutes here.
Yep.
Thank you. Other officers remark, Rookie?
Jim O'Rourke, Commissioner District 2, just thanks for what you guys do. And the fire department, while they're not here tonight, did a remarkable job. For the 4th and the Cherry Festival was good. And my meeting tomorrow is 200 and some pages is what my handout is, so consider yourself lucky. Other than that, we lost an Elmwood Township resident last week, a former business associate of mine. He got 12 to 30 years. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rookie. Communications from the clerk.
I have in your boxes, I put the audit, and if you have any questions on that, just let me know. And if you ever want to see the auditors do a presentation, that can always be arranged. And also I put a revenue expenditure report through June. May not all have all the cash received since Chris has been on vacation, but, all right.
Okay. No old business, moving on to new business. Item 10A, Timberley Water Update, consideration of options. Ken, come on up.
All right, so I sent you guys some information, and an update on where we're at. So just to recap a little bit, not sure how up to speed you are, Kyle. You know, with the Timberley system, there's been a couple ongoing issues with Eagle as they review the system every couple years they review it and they list out any deficiencies. So for many years, there's deficiencies were noted as the Cottonwood booster station was a concern because the pump cycles very quickly. It only runs for a few seconds and shuts off. And the other main concern was the large hydromatic tank down there operates over its rated pressure. And it's been doing that for many, many years, but Eagles does not like the fact that it operates over pressure. So to give you an update where we are now, we've had discussions, we've met out on site several times, or been out on site. And Eagle has backed off on the Cottonwood booster station. Because there's really no history of equipment failing, they've backed off on that and that it's no longer a deficiency. So at this point, we don't need to do any major repairs to Cottonwood booster station to meet Eagle requirements. There are a couple things that the operators would like to see done up there to make the station more user-friendly for them, but that is it. For the main hydromatic tank, it's currently a 15,000 gallon tank that's out there right now. Talking with Eagle, we've had some email back and forth with them. The tank sizing for that could be significantly reduced and still meet the standards of the 10 state standards and the Eagle's rules of sizing. So there's potential we could reduce the size of those tanks, which could be a cost savings. And with the operators as well, if we reduce the tank size, we can also utilize 2 tanks. So you have 2 small tanks, which gives redundancy. So if you ever need to work on one tank, you don't have to shut the system off. You can operate with one tank while you're fixing the other. So a 2-tank system appears to be a pretty good option. And that would meet Eagle's requirements. I do need to get verification on the sizing from them. I have not heard back on them from that yet, but so we're still working through some details. But in a nutshell, we can replace the tank there with a hydropneumatic tank, either the same size or possibly 2 smaller ones. But I guess kind of the overarching question would be looking at the system overall. As it sits right now, it's a hydropneumatic system, so it pumps from a well into a pressure tank, a big pressure tank. Because it's that type of system, Eagle will not allow any additional connections to the system. So we can't expand, we can't add any users, no matter what happens up there. If we wanted to add users to it, we do need to change the type of storage. So instead of a pressure tank, it needs to be an elevated storage tank of some sort. And those are certainly a lot more expensive to put in a storage tank. Materials, but also you need a place to put it. And the only place that really works is the top of the hill. which Township does not have any property up there. So we've discussed this in the past. We had a public meeting before. And the option of a gravity system, which is the big storage tank on top of the hill, just doesn't seem to be very desirable because of the cost. It's a very expensive way to go. And it's expensive because it's a small user base. There's only 190 connections to that whole system. So to try to spread out a multi-million-dollar project across that little bit of users, it's pretty harsh on the user cost. So really, just want to confirm the direction of, do we want to look at allowing the system to grow, or do we want to maintain the system kind of status quo, same size, with just updated equipment that meets Eagle requirements? So I think that's the first point of discussion.
So question, why, you said that 15,000 gallon tank is too big, so why can't you add users, which you have too big of a tank?
It
Why
is.
won't they let you do that?
Right, it's that same set of rules actually limits the system to 150 users for a hydropneumatic style system. So I guess they just don't want too many people on that type of system at one time.
So if you have two tanks, how big are the two tanks? You got some salvage tanks from Grand Traverse County?
Yeah,
how
about
big are they?
4,000 gallons.
A piece?
Yeah, yep,
So that's half the size, basically.
right,
of
right.
What you got now.
Yeah.
Is that gonna be big enough to?
You know, it fits the size of the system. So if you do the calculations of what's required to serve the flows in the system, it is big enough. And looking back, yeah, I'm not sure why there's a 15,000 gallons tank there, unless that's what was available at the time and they could get a used tank that was that size.
Probably
Yeah,
because they pumped snowmaking equipment.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's part of the reason why the wells out there are very robust. There's a lot of water we could pump out of the ground right there, and that's because of the snowmaking equipment. So it can pump way more water than that system uses, especially because there's no fire protection there. You know, it's just domestic use. But no matter what we do, if we maintain a hydropneumatic system where the wells just pump into that pressure tank, Eagle has stated we cannot add users. So no matter what we do, we have to change this type of system it is if we wanted to add users.
So any growth out there has to have their own well, basically.
Correct.
Is there any way to, if we're talking about buying new tanks and do we have multiple wells?
Yeah, there's 3 wells out there currently.
Would Eagle accept if we said we've got 3 systems or 2 systems and broke some off, didn't connect them, said these people over here run this one, these people over here run this one?
I don't think that could work out
Okay.
because there's 3 wells. If there's 4, you might be able to work that out, but you have to have some redundancy for each system in the supply. But that would add other issues too. You'd have to operate it as a separate system, there'd be separate permitting. But to be honest, I haven't actually thought of that as an option.
Now, you'd probably need a tank for each one,
Well, you'd need a hydropneumatic tank for each one,
for
correct?
each one, yeah.
Well, we're gonna
so-
buy 2 more maybe. We got 3 wells, we got 3 tanks. I mean, I understand it's probably way more complicated than that, but
That is an interesting idea, though.
Weren't we required to put in that 3rd well?
Yes.
Yeah. Just for that redundancy.
So, Dave, go ahead.
Can I get several questions, I guess? Where does all the pressure come from on the lower, for the bottom tank, the big tank we're talking about right now?
It comes from the wells, the well
Comes from
pumps.
the well directly,
Correct.
okay. We've talked about putting booster system into lines, because we certainly have the capacity.
Mhm.
We could technically put in a booster system like we have on the Cottonwood system.
Mhm.
and possibly eliminate the replacement of that tank completely. And then these are more questions, and I don't expect an immediate answer, but that's a possibility. Some of the cost of the tanks are one thing, and then it's making sure the tanks are insulated so they don't freeze, building a building, and then insulating or heating the building. All of those are associated costs with this whole situation. I was wondering also, how tall of a tower would we have to build a water tank to accommodate a reasonable amount of pressure? And I know in the system right now, we're running at, depending on what gauge you look at, 130 pounds. If we cut it back to 100 pounds, we would still possibly have adequate pressures to all of the people, but they would definitely know that they had a pressure decrease, volume decrease, because volume is pressure and vice versa. But if we added a booster into that line, the only line that we have to use is the north side. Is that right? Those are the only ones that are out of that boosted area that the Cottonwood booster station doesn't provide to. Is that correct?
There is, the very top of the hill at Sun Perch is also very close
Okay.
to minimum pressure.
Minimum pressures.
Yeah.
I thought from the Cottonwood booster station, we have the ability to open a line and provide to Cottonwood off that booster station. And why are we not doing that now? I mean, it seems like, because the lines run almost side by side at that point. One turns off this direction and one goes through the booster station. And then it just goes to the one condo association.
Yeah.
But certainly we can turn that main line off and run everything through that booster station, which is going to give us better cycle times. But it'll give them all the pressure they need. And then the only people we have to worry about is the people to the north. Would that be correct?
I think that would be.
And they certainly can use, because they don't have the altitude, they can use possibly the 100-pound working range pressure or slightly boosted pressure to provide to them. And that would solve a lot of our problem. But my other question would be altitude. If we put in a tower, and I'm looking at this thing from being reasonably physically, and I'm trying to look out for the community up there, because there is only 190 people paying for this thing. And I don't see why we can't put a tower down below at the Cottonwood booster station and go up 100 feet, or 150 feet, 125 feet, because we're certainly lower than the surrounding topography, and not purchase property, not build an infrastructure, because we can use the same infrastructure as the lines coming into that booster station, and we should be able to cut our costs significantly. Does that make sense? Or, I mean, just off the cuff, I guess I shouldn't say, does that make sense? That's something to possibly look at. To me, if I put up a 150-foot tower there, I'm not sure about the gallons. That's something the engineers would have to work out. But that would certainly boost that whole system in both directions, because you'd be splitting the system in half.
So when you say tower, you're talking like what Blair Township has, or what?
An overhead
East
tower.
Bay has?
Yeah, and
Something like
a
that?
tower that would actually sit up and be a bulb.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to go in, if we try to go in ground, we're gonna have to go buy property up on top of the hill. We've gotta build the whole infrastructure, all the piping going up, and then all of the piping coming down. That's really expensive, really expensive. And And we're not lacking in pressure, basically. If we run at 100 pounds, we're real close to where our working capacity should be. Ideally, we should have more, because we're used to having more. But I think if we took the two condominium associations to the south, Cottonwood and Sunperch, and ran them off that Cottonwood booster station, that's gonna eliminate them altogether, plus give us better run times. Because we have that capability right now. If I understand the drawings I looked at, although my magnifying glass was getting steamed up, they were pretty small
They are small.
diagrams. But then we still have to deal with the people to the north, and I'm not so sure that they wouldn't be fine lowering the pressure to the 100 pounds. Does that sound reasonable to you?
I think you're gonna be pushing the limit if you don't boost the station, or if you don't boost it to the north at some point.
But to some point, if we went to expand, well, what I'm looking at is trying to, I see no benefit to do all of this if we can expand the service. So we got 190 users, we probably have, and I'm guessing by just the open space that's there, there's probably another 100 lots that are buildable that could attach to that system. And if we build just to make it status quo for the next 25 to 50 years, we really haven't benefited that water district, because the criteria is going to get stricter and stricter from Eagle, the DEQ, and then if we ever want to do anything to expand, we'll never be able to expand it, or they'll never be able to expand it, unless we really start thinking out of the box here on how to accommodate some of those services. The other thing I was going to ask is, we talk about water volume and being able to drop and go to a smaller tank. Do we know what the actual gallons coming out of there in a 6-month period of time is? You know, every day?
Yeah, we have, it's metered.
It is
Yeah.
metered, okay, I know that it is metered, but winter to summer, and calculate that out.
Yep.
Because it's one thing, and it's kind of like the booster station, we talked about putting in smaller pumps so it didn't cycle as often. But then if we went to improve the system, add more users, then we'd be upgrading the system again. So it's a catch-22. What do you do to make it meet the minimum requirements, but then if you don't add on to the users, the user base, the system's not gonna be able to afford to take care of itself forever. Because they're going to need some major improvements at some point in the future. I mean, in the next 25 to 50 years.
So can we have a discussion on this here?
Yeah, sure, please.
These water towers, you know, they don't give them away, I don't think. But would that be, you think, cheaper than putting like a glass line tank at the top of the hill, buying a little 2-acre piece or something
I
like that?
don't know that anybody's willing to sell anything. I don't think we've gone that far. I'm just trying to throw out some scenarios so we
Yeah.
start looking how to do things. And I understand we had a meeting 2 years ago, and we brought people in and we asked the users if they want to improve the district. And of course, they didn't want to,
No.
because they don't want to spend any more money. But the other hand of it is the township is, that district is in the township's care and custody. We have to do what's best for the water district and also to increase the use of it. You know, at some point, it's gonna have to be increased.
If I remember the numbers right, a couple years ago, it was $3 million for a 250,000 gallon tank, $1 million for 100,000, $8 million to hook to the Gregville water system, and 400 to fix what was there. And I think those numbers are pretty close. I think that's what it was a couple years ago. And-
it's not, well,
And the 250,000 was what our fire chief would have liked to seen for fire suppression. 100,000 wouldn't do it, but it would suffice for the system. John, do you have any thoughts or comments? I mean,
Well, what we have right now, sorry. What we have right now is, for the past 20 years, 15 years, Eagle's been saying, these are your deficiencies, and we've been getting away with it.
Right.
And they're knocking on the door right now. I still debate whether or not we have 190 connections. We have 126 connections, just 2 of them are apartment buildings, so there's multiple units. Historically, they didn't use the RUs. They talked connection period. So that's why we're in this mess. Eagles basically redefined what a connection is. We're at the upper limit. Actually, we're above it. We're at what they say is 191 or 192. The limit's 150 on pneumatic storage. So what they're saying is they're giving us the opportunity to stay on pneumatic, but our customer base stays the same. So that's the cheaper option. Then, if you want to take storage, first of all, the mains are not suited for fire protection. They're 6-inch lines for the most part. So we can't get fire protection out there. So we don't need that 250,000 gallon tank. The minimum, I think, is 50,000. And that's probably meeting current standards. So if you want any growth, you have to put in 100,000. And we can debate where on the system to do that. I mean, we can engineer it, put it wherever, but you got to come up with that money first. So that's 100,000 tank. That's well over $1 million. If we can get by with using 2 tanks we currently own, and that'll meet the requirements, then we're no longer out of compliance, and now we have time to look forward and plan for any sort of expansion. And it's kind of a tough situation we're in. I can't tell you if we should expand or not expand. I do know this, they are not knocking down our door to connect to that system right now. They're just not. And they haven't been since I've been here, 9-10 years. So at some point in the future, that might be a possibility or potential, but the current customers are the ones who are gonna have to pay for that right now.
So has there been any new houses built? I haven't even driven up there in the last couple of years.
I think there's been a couple.
there has been a few, but they're
But
punching in their own
They
wells.
drill their own wells.
They're putting in their own wells because
And
of
they would
the
never want to hook
connection
up to it.
problems.
Right.
Well, some do it because they don't have to connect to the water.
Right.
To my knowledge, we haven't refused anybody, but you didn't hear me say that.
Because there's that subdivision that the county took over a while ago and it got land banked, and it wasn't part of the kicking that out of the land bank that they were able to break the covenant, or it was determined that they weren't ever part of the covenant. Somehow, they can punch wells, right?
Yeah.
And that's about like 30 lots
Yeah.
that I'm just, to the same point, Terry, I used to live up there, and I'm like wondering, did that all get developed? From a map view, it doesn't look like really much has happened in that subdivision.
No, because they couldn't there for a while, but now I think they
Right.
can just drill their own well.
The
Yeah.
land
They can.
bank broke that covenant that they had to connect, yes.
And for the most part, I mean, it's all big lots up there. I mean, that could all change, obviously, people could break them up, but I'm wondering, are the people on the other side of Cottonwood, those couple of houses kind of on the back side of the hill, are they on the system, or they punch their own wells?
I doubt it.
That I can't tell you without looking at the
Okay.
map.
I would doubt it.
On the south side?
I'm
Yeah, it would be
guessing,
the south side, and then it goes into Solon, and there's a bunch of
No,
big
those
5
are
and 10
not.
acre
They're-
lots.
They're clearly out.
Okay.
They're
Yeah, the
clearly
main
out.
doesn't go by them.
No.
But
Yeah.
there was, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of building, but there was, at one point, activity. Those lots were selling and people were doing stuff. I hear you, Dave. On one hand, it's like, why are we dumping money in basically what's a dying system? On the other hand, I guess that's the question. If we create a system where we say, hey, 100 more users, come on board, is anyone gonna come knocking?
Part of my situation is if we use Cottonwood as the booster for the 2 condominium associations, clearly that is in compliance then. The only one we have to worry about is then towards Lake Linenau or to the north. And they may be, and that's if we brought the pressure down to meet the DEQ standards for that tank. What would it cost to put in a booster for that line?
And keep the same tank we got there now?
And keep the same tank we got there now. That tank isn't going to expire, it's just that we're working over the pressure, the recommended pressure of the manufacturer. That tank would probably work at 200 pounds, but it's certainly over the manufacturer's recommendation. But if we could drop that to 100 pounds and put in a booster pump, a frequency pump or whatever in that line that feeds to people to the north, just to keep more pressure.
Keep their pressure up.
Keep their pressure, yeah,
Up.
because that way, when they open up their faucets, if they opened up all at the same time, if they were running at 35 pounds of pressure, they're going to have a decrease, they're gonna have a big jump downward. And if we could put a high-pressure pump or a higher pressure pump to the north, I think we could rectify the problem in, at least for the next probably 15 or 20 years. And they give us an idea on what we're gonna do. Because that tank is still good. It's not going to expire. It doesn't have a timestamp on it, does it? It's been inspected. So it seems to
Yeah,
be
there's,
repairs.
yeah, it needs work. It's also not accessible by, on the inside.
Well, I talked to your people, and they told me they inspected it.
They do, as best they can, but there's no entrance into that tank that a man can go
He said he
in, to my
entered it.
knowledge.
He entered it from the top, he told me.
Okay.
Because I had
'Cause we hired
a
hired
pretty good
guys to do it,
conversation
so.
with them, and they were in it, and they shut that system down for a while, and, well, quite a while, then they had to reboot everything, and that was, I'm not sure how many years ago he said that, but
So
he,
how much for a booster station?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's
Three,
it'd
400
basically be
thousand?
another Cottonwood station.
Right.
well, but could we put it in the existing building without having a remote station? Cottonwood's not, the Cottonwood booster stations, actually, I was impressed with that facility. It's pretty well built, and it's been darn well maintained. You know, you can spend the money on one thing, or you can spend the money on something else. If you're gonna maintain the people, if you're still gonna be running at 130 pounds pressure just for the people to the north or more, that's gonna be that much harder on the wells to pump 130 pounds. And then it's also that much harder on the tank and the lines and everything else. So if you could put a booster tank, a pump in that system headed north, I think, I don't know. I mean, I think it's well worth looking into, because that place, well, I'll just tell you, my opinion is, that facility's been managed and it's run the same way it was run for Timberlea. Nobody's really gone through and said, geez, if we replace this or we improve that, we're gonna get something. And it's a pretty small facility as far as water systems go, and it's it's not your ordinary, well, Traverse City water system or anything else. It doesn't function the same way.
If I could add,
Please.
we've planned for these, in the rates, we just, well, I didn't have them on, the resolutions to increase the rates for that area, because we need to amend the ordinance, so I wanted to bring that all back together. But, for another $1 a month, the money's gonna be there to do it. Even if we had to go up to $2 a month more per customer, another $24 a year. And it's not just a dying system, it needs to serve those people that are on it with a dependable, quality water. And I think if you do any reduction in pressure, people will not be happy. So I just don't wanna go off trying to do it, sort of experimental things to save a little money. I'd rather see it just, we maintain the system, other people can put in wells, we just maintain it size-wise, but make sure it's quality and dependable.
You don't have a reduction, they have a restrictor. So their pressure
You talked about,
drops.
Dave, somebody at the end only having 100 pounds,
No.
and if they're used to more, they're not gonna be happy.
No, that's not what I said. The system would have 100 pounds maximum, which would drop their pressure. But if you have 100-pound pressure in the line, their house pressure is restricted down to maybe 45 or 50 pounds.
80.
It all, yeah, lower down.
It's
As you
dropped.
go off the hill,
Yeah.
further up the hill, the pressure reduces.
Exactly.
So those houses that are at the top of the hill, one of the guys was out there and he was working there and put a pressure gauge on their hose spigot. And he saw the pressure was, I think it was right around 35 PSI. And the guy's out there saying, yeah, my pressure, it comes up and it goes down, it varies already. So, I think they would notice if we reduce pressure.
Raising the rates
Absolutely.
and lowering their
Yeah,
pressure doesn't
yeah,
seem like a good
not
idea.
gonna go well together.
That's not a good idea.
Some of those people up there, because I know a couple of the people up there, they have a problem with their pressure regulator going into their houses. And I don't know that that's ever been addressed. I talked to you about that, and I don't know if they've ever addressed it or they didn't, but, you can look at it whatever way you want. Buying a tank is one way to possibly solve it. We're still gonna have the same problems we're gonna, well, if it isn't the regulator that's adjusting the pressure, and we've got 130 pounds in it now, you tell me what the problem is.
It's not, again, this is my beef with Eagle. There is no problem, and it's been operating
No,
above
with
limits.
I'm talking to him about the water pressure fluctuation. If we're running at 130 pounds
Well, we
of
go,
pressure in the
we
tank.
go uphill. The guy at the top,
I understand that, but see, that guy can be boosted off the Cottonwood pressure system.
No, to the north.
yeah.
He's to the north and he's
Yep,
having
yep,
pressure?
yep.
Well, then it's gotta be his regulator.
No, he doesn't. If, he only needs a regulator if it's above technically 90 at his house. If he's at 35, he doesn't have one. That's 35 coming in.
Right. There's a couple houses that
Disagree with that.
overlook the ski hill, right there. They are high enough that their pressure it's already borderline of what it should be.
Okay, the sheet that you sent me, the statistics that you sent me, was if you dropped it down, that they would be at 35 or 40 pounds of pressure at the highest point that the DPW checked. And that's not a big fluctuation point.
I'd have to look back at that. I'm
Because
sorry, I don't
well,
remember.
that's what you sent me, and that's what the DPW took the pressure readings
Yeah,
at.
I can tell you 35 is the minimum that we like to
No,
send
no,
to a house.
35
Below
is the
that,
minimum.
if he
35
has-
is the
They have
minimum. I agree with that.
two floors,
I
they're
agree
not
with
getting
that.
pressure upstairs.
I agree. Okay.
If you have fire suppression too, it's minimum, I mean, technically 20 is the minimum out there. But you like to see at least 40 in your hydrants and
Sure.
just. We didn't sit down and talk about redesigning the system. The system was built and we have customers attached to it. We have existing equipment. Eagle has some issues with the existing equipment. We looked at how to remedy that, both status quo, that means do the minimum we have to maintain compliance with the state and run this. I mean, running tanks over pressure is not the smartest thing to do, but it's been going on for years, maybe decades. Then the next level up is build minimum storage. And then there's say a B option to that, which is build some additional storage for growth. And then above that is fire suppression. That's full-on water system. That's, 12-inch mains. We don't have, and we're nowhere near that. So, I mean, really, I think all we're looking at is the difference between a 50,000 storage tank and upgrading the pneumatic tank. Those two options, based on what I see, one's half the other. So that's what we would start with if we want to sit down and say, where could we put this 50,000 storage tank to maybe eliminate something over here? We didn't really look at that, but it's a spider web. It has, it's one line that goes like this and two that go out like that, and that's your system. So,
And all the lines go up and down.
Yeah.
There's hills in the middle.
It's the people at the top of the hill, I mean, at the bottom of the hill, they all have PRVs on them. The people at the top of the hill, you gotta run at pressure enough to get them as much as you can, and 35 is the bare minimum. And there's a couple, because we've had complaints in the past.
So the people at the top of the hill, they probably couldn't drill their own wells. Is that,
Well,
I mean, let me rephrase that. They couldn't economically drill their wells. You could drill them all in the
well,
ocean.
would you allow them to stay on the system? If they, I mean, are we talking about replacing their public connection with a well and coming off the system?
I guess that's what I'm wondering is, and I don't know, I'm trying to remember if that was even an option 2 years ago, if people said that, is that what people want? As we're talking about, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars into this system, if some people just start going, well, why don't I go spend $5 and put one in my backyard and just say, forget it?
It'll be more than 5, but I don't know what the
It was
overall.
discussed.
Okay.
But, sorry. You start opening the door for people to come off the system, you're losing
That's a
customers.
bad deal.
And then the
Well,
system's gone.
with the move towards eventually we just shut the whole thing down and just
Right.
get out of it.
Right. So, I mean, again, this is just my experience. What's gonna happen is, people are gonna start coming down, you're gonna have to start raising rates. People are gonna start coming off, you're gonna raise rates, and there are gonna be some people that can't afford to drill their own well, and they're gonna be stuck paying everything, and you're still in the business. So if you're in the business, you gotta keep your customers, and get more if you can. Do not let them come off unless you are closing this system down and everybody can drill a new well.
I think there are some lots up there that may not be able to drill a well to, because the lots are so small with the septic system, they may not have room to put a well in.
Okay. And that's why I was thinking, the people who are gonna be most bothered by that would be the condo systems, probably.
Those lots are out of luck now, right? Because they can't add to the system.
Well, no, there's existing, they're on the system.
Oh, they're on it.
Yeah, it's kind of
Okay.
down the hill. You know, there's a section of pretty small lots.
Okay.
I haven't researched it, it was brought up in discussions.
Okay.
So these tanks that you have, are they horizontal, kind of like a propane tank, or are they vertical?
They're horizontal tanks.
They're horizontal tanks? Like how much area do they take up? Like half of this room, or?
Right there,
Yeah.
each.
Oh, the smaller
6
tanks.
6 by 16.
16?
About right.
So like a 40 by 40 building would cover them and everything?
Yeah, they wouldn't need to be excessively tall.
Yeah. And so you're going from 15,000 gallons there to 8, basically. Could you add a third tank if you found that really wasn't? I know engineers never do anything wrong, but sometimes they
You know, you
shortchange
could.
things.
The calculation actually, the
Run them in
requirement is
series.
10 times your largest pump to serve the system, but you have to look at your cycle time. So you don't have another pump that kicks on for 10 seconds and shuts off to fill the tank. So there's a balance point. So if we went 8,000 gallons, that's 2 times the amount you're required, looking at the specific system. But then you just gotta look at what's your cycle time, make sure we're not damaging the pumps. That they can turn on, run long enough to exercise them and shut off.
Burn out.
Yeah, yeah. So there's some reviews, there's calculations that have to be done to make sure the sizing is gonna work correctly.
Well,
Was the-
we could look at the one. We have estimates, I mean, I'm not saying I don't dislike 2, but, you know, 1, we don't necessarily need 15,000. Get 110. The 2 are just already here. They're from a system where we took them off because Garfield built a new above-ground storage tank. So they're using that pressure instead of these. That's an example of,
Yeah.
again, those neighborhoods were all limited to the number of connections that we could have on them and stuff like that. I don't believe we were anywhere near that, 150 or whatever it is that the Eagle says, but if and when they ever went to it, they would have to go on above-ground storage with fire protection, because we got 12-inch mains in Garfield.
It sounds like probably the best thing to do is just take the 2 tanks and
Well, are the 2 tanks certified now? since they've been taken out of service, have they been recertified?
I'm gonna say no, because I haven't done it.
So what is that going to take? Well, and that's kind of an interesting question, because we got it priced here, but we'd have to find out about that. But what is the cost for the building?
Right.
And I don't see that necessarily here as far as simple numbers.
$100 a foot.
And is there gonna have to be a replacement building, or both of these tanks, the $600,000 and the $400,000 tanks, do they both or all three of them have to go in a building?
They either have to go in a building, or they can be partially in a building, partially buried, which is the current situation. Yeah, they put the access point of the tank inside a building, and then they bury the outside.
'Cause the existing one there is insulated.
Right, that's another option, is insulate the tank. So there's different ways you can
But
install these tanks.
are we looking at pricing here above?
Yeah, I did put an assumed building cost in there, and I did send you guys the cost estimates, apologize.
Okay,
So this 600,000 that's talking about, or 400,000 that's talking about building the building around it?
That would include a building.
Okay.
that would include a building?
Yep, a roughly sized pole building over those two smaller tanks.
And then did we say we'd have to heat those?
You'd want some heat in there.
Okay.
Right. But you don't know if they have to be recertified?
I assume they would be, but I don't know the specific process to do that yet.
So how much is heat gonna run for a pole
That's-
barn?
That's what I was thinking too.
Depends on how you
Sure.
insulate the pole barn.
The water should keep it pretty warm. I don't heat my well house at all.
You don't have a big exchange of water in there. It's like the upper station. There's like 36, it's a 1,000-gallon tank, pressure tank, and there's only 36 gallons of movement. And that's air and water.
Yeah.
So there's,
They don't cycle through.
they don't cycle very much at all. It's not like a pressure tank in a house.
If it's insulated, well-insulated building, you could, hook- Cherryland has cheap electricity.
So those are kinds of things that we need to know.
Well, I can see why everybody else kicked this down the road. So, what do we want to do here? Do we want to get more information again? Do we want to decide if we're looking at replacing tanks or above ground, or, I mean, you know, Eagle's been sending us this letter for years, and everybody else has stuck it in a file and said, oh yeah, let the next guy worry
What do
about
we,
it.
like, long-term, to that point?
Yeah.
We've largely been, bubble gum and Band-Aiding this thing for years.
Yeah.
What happens if we just keep doing that and say, okay, thank you, Eagle, nice letter? Well, I mean, I know they just like tried to, kicked a bunch of people out of a trailer park in Cadillac. It sounded like a total disaster.
Grayling.
Grayling?
Yeah.
I mean, is that a fear?
Well, fines, consent order.
Right.
I mean, my recommendation, I would come up with a solution and put that forward. Whatever it is, I would not do nothing at this point.
One of my biggest concerns is that we've been notified for how many years from Eagle? If something happens out there, that tank ruptures or something,
Yeah.
I mean, legally, I would think we could be liable. Because Eagle's been sending us this letter saying, you need to fix this. So, I mean, that's my biggest concern. It's like, we need to do something that shows that we did something. And, go ahead, Dave.
I would like to see cost for either the 600,000 or the 400,000 to usable tanks, certification, demolition, and a building, an insulated building. I would like to see the total cost of that. I hate nickel and diming things and finding out later what our costs are going to be. So we have a total concept of cost, because you got two tanks here, the $600,000 one, or the $400,000 ones, but we don't know about recertifying them, or if they need to be recertified. Do you know what the working pressure is on those tanks?
They are 150.
150s? Okay, so that's probably what we're going to need. But I'd like to see a total cost analysis for demolition, taking the old tank out, all of the piping, the tank replacement, the building, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
That's what we should have, is a total package.
As in contractor quotes?
Well, no, an estimated price from you.
Okay.
That's pretty close to what we have here, right? The 6 to
Yeah.
700,000?
Now, is this including the demolition? Okay, see, it's not spelled out
Right.
in
I
any,
didn't- I
in
didn't
any
get
way,
your cost
shape, or
estimate.
form. And it's not even the pole building. Well, like Kyle said, you're talking about a pole building, it's just a piece of metal, or is it spray foamed, or what are we getting here?
Yeah, did you price out like a spray
Yeah,
foam
I mean,
building?
these are very preliminary estimates.
Yeah.
You gotta understand that. So yes,
So-
I do add in costs.
Right, so that's the $600,000 to $700,000
I made
quote,
some
right?
assumptions,
Right.
certainly.
So what you'd like to see is more of a breakdown specifically?
Well, the problem is it doesn't say that all that's in there, as far as the demolition and everything else, and all of the piping for the pipe fitters and everything else. It's pretty vague. You wouldn't build a house with this kind of breakdown.
So if we spend the 600, or up to 600,000, I guess I'd go with the 400,000 idea first. You know, if those tanks are certifiable. Connie, you said it would raise their rates $1 a month.
And,
We figured
Well-
on the 400,000, because we have
Right.
200,000 we can put down.
Right.
And we would have to borrow some, but the rate hikes we talked about last month
based on
included,
400.
were based on that $400,000.
Right.
right, and that's fair.
So I can't believe anybody would have a problem with $1 more a month to have this upgrade to their
To have
system.
a system that the DEQ doesn't say is
Yes.
deficient all the
Right.
time.
So here's, I
Or
mean,
Eagle, or whatever they call them.
engineers were tasked with taking a look at it. Engineers have. There is supporting documentation behind these numbers. What we do is come to you with these options and look for a little winkle in your eye to say which one you want, and then we go and we tackle that and get good numbers, and then bring it back to you and say, you're still interested in doing this? Because if you are, then we're gonna put this out to bid, and we're gonna get real numbers for you. These, we don't expect you to make, I mean, if you're going with an above-ground storage tank, it doesn't matter that these tanks are 400,000. You're looking to expand the system, you're willing to spend $1 million, then we go pursue that option. We bring back better engineered numbers, everything outlined on what we think the project would include. This was, hey, we have a letter. It's not the first one they sent us now. They're kind of saying, you just gotta stop adding customers to the system, put the brakes on this thing and make a decision. We want above-ground storage. They're really pushing you above-ground storage. Allowing us to work with what we have, in my opinion, is an option that you should take if it's presented to you, because they don't always do that. So we wouldn't be arguing about 400,000, we'd be arguing about $2 to $3 million on a project. These options right here, what do you think? Should we get a new tank? Or we have two we have that we think can work? You guys wanna go with some old tanks like we did before? You
Well,
just
how
tell
long
us,
did that
you
last?
tell us what
Yeah.
option you want.
Right.
And then we work with them and we get you a more detailed,
Okay.
Yeah.
accounting or just a detailed, understanding of what that project is.
So basically, they're just looking for some guidance from us. So is that what
Right.
we want to do? We want to have them look at those 2 tanks, see what it would take to certify them. Let's try to obviously minimize the cost. Let's fix the system as it is, and we can plan for the future. But, I guess my only concern with that is 20 years from now, somebody's going to be having the conversation of, oh, well, these tanks, now we're hearing and we need to plan for the future, so, I mean,
But
it's
you're
not fair to
still
have the people
talking
there.
Same size. We're
Right.
not talking about growing the system.
Right, no, I get that, Terry, I'm
Let
just
the new
saying,
growth out there can drill their own wells.
yeah, yeah.
I'd make a motion that we use the $400,000 estimate and look at the used tanks
I'd
and
support that.
bring that forward. with all of the
With more
costs
specific details.
associated with the specifics.
Okay,
Okay?
I support it.
we have a motion and we have a support on that. Any more discussion?
I would just
Yeah.
say, I mean, that, we've talked about this before, if we ever want to go to our own water, which we don't, I mean, I think that's when we look at a raised tank, because that is good water out there. But otherwise, if we have to build a raised tank, I think we find an assessment district, and the people who can't afford to put in wells, we loan them the money and just say, we're done with this. Because this would, I mean, I think this is the route. I don't think a $2 million tower for 190 customers makes any sense, or is smart with their money or ours.
Okay. Motion and support. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? You got your marching orders. If you guys can do that for us, it'd be really great to get this thing done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, John. Thanks, Ken. Waterways Grant Agreement Resolution. So we got 600,000 from Waterways for Phase 3. And that's what this resolution is about.
Actually, can I ask Ken some questions?
Yeah, hey, Ken, could you hang here for just one more minute? You want him up at the podium?
Sure.
Yeah,
Wherever he
for
wants to
just
be.
a second. Thanks, John.
So, Ken, as you noted, I got a little gap in what's going on here. This is for 3C. Have we already done one of these for 3B?
This is the grants
Yeah.
Yes.
from Waterways.
Yep.
Yes.
So
Yep.
yes, this would be the third one,
So we already signed one of these for,
For 3A and 3B.
3A and 3B, that's correct.
Yep.
okay, all right. I guess that is the bulk of my
Yep.
question. And, wait, I guess, no, I just have more questions. As to some of the questions from the public, as to where we're at, what's going on, when we're doing things. So are we bidded out for the building?
We are not. So at this point, we are finalizing the plans. The architect should have the plans to us by, I think you said September 1st. At that point, we do need to get a state review from Waterways. They review the plans and they have to approve it. Once they approve it, we can go out for bids. We need to have funding in place. It's recommended to have funding in place before you go out to bids. And I don't remember the total amount, but it's significantly more than the grants we've got from Waterways.
Yes. So, in reading this contract, basically, it sounds like once we sign this, we're not allowed to make changes to what we've shown them, but we don't have architecturals yet.
Oh, no, they haven't seen the final plans yet. So, yeah, I don't know, I haven't seen that contract, I don't remember reading that. But they haven't approved the plans, the final bid documents yet.
Okay. I guess what I'm getting at, is there any way we can shrink the size of the building at this stage still?
I think there is, but
So we've talked about it actually, and the architect is supposed to be trying to get rid of some of the non-essential stuff.
because didn't we talk about it's like over $2 million now?
Yeah.
Oh, it's more than that.
And
Yeah.
2.5 million or some
for the
crazy
building,
number?
yeah.
And the poor boaters out there are gonna say, hey, I've been happy with the last rate increases you had, but these future ones are gonna kill us.
Yeah, yeah, at our last meeting, we did sit down, we talked about seeing what can we reduce.
Right.
You know, there's gonna be some landscape items we might be able to reduce. Something that's not going to impact the use of the facility, but will reduce the initial cost.
I mean, my thought is, we need the bathrooms. We don't even need as big of a room as we have. We've got a huge room. I don't know how much, and this is, I'm not an engineer or an architect, I don't know how much we save by doing that.
That would be a question for the architect. Just when it comes to the building items, he has done all that work and
Okay.
would understand that better.
Okay. So I guess that's my question. So we can, to the extent we can, pare things down, because now I'm having trouble finding it, but I thought it said somewhere in here. Oh, okay. The construction of the facility is a satisfaction of the department to be provide funds. Okay. There should be no deviation from the plans and specifications without the express written consent of Parks and Recreation Division. It's under Section 2, Township shall.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think
don't know
That would be after
that's
they
after
approve
they
the
approve
plans.
it.
After they've approved it?
Right, so
Okay.
I think somewhere in either that or the previous agreement, when we got the grant for the design, it was that they get to approve it before it goes out to bid.
Yeah.
So they review and approve it before we can actually get bids.
Okay.
Yeah, and then from that point on, if there are changes, we have to include them in the discussion
Right.
for cost changes or design changes.
Okay. I guess that was, yeah, largely, is reading this one, I was
Yeah.
wondering if the question of, is there anything we can do about the building? But it sounds like we're trying.
We're trying.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to pare it
And I would
down.
propose, if losing square footage on that room saves any real money, the room does not need to be that big, personally.
Okay.
We need every bathroom we have. We need, we can't lose a single bathroom, in my opinion. We're losing them net on the facility. But the space of the lounge, some of those nice features, the swing open doors, the cement everywhere. Let's axe a patio, let's axe a wide open, I don't, to the extent that saves money,
Right.
please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
that's what we are looking at that, see what we can reduce.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
I move to adopt Resolution 10 of 2023, approving the grant agreement for Marina Phase 3C with the DNR matching funds of $600,000.
Support.
We have a motion and support. You guys have any more discussion on this, questions or
I
comments?
guess not to just
Sure.
beat a dead horse, but we've got some voters here who are, well,
Not technically, but,
It's just the grant agreement.
yeah, this, all this is saying is that we're gonna accept the money that they're giving us.
Yeah,
Um,
but then you have to. Then you're locked in. You're locked into the design.
well,
No, we're not.
I'm
We're not locked
sorry,
into
I-
the design.
I
So
brought
ju-
this
So
to
just
a-
so you know, so they're giving us 600,000. The design of the new building is way more than twice that. And all we're required is to match their fee, match what they are giving us. So no matter what we build, we're gonna have at least 1.2 million in it. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's gonna have to be built on piers. That takes all sorts of cost, so the excess, we're gonna try to trim down as much as we can. I mean, honestly, because we all understand that. This went through, I know this isn't really appropriate, but what the heck. We went through years of design and people coming in and talking, and so we're trying to balance that with the cost moving forward, and it's not easy for us to figure out, but we really are working on it. And maybe one thing we could do is have Ray Kender, our architect, come in to a meeting. And maybe we could talk to him about that and see what we could.
Talk about hooking those two buildings together with the.
We could talk about some options,
You
so.
could do it in the wintertime, it
Yep.
wouldn't interrupt the voters down there.
So,
Rip the
we'll,
roof off of it.
we'll look at trying to, like I said, maybe the best thing is to have him come in. We're so far down the road on this,
Well,
we
now,
can't leave it the way it
according-
is.
According to Pete, he's telling this next year,
Yeah.
we won't even be able to get on our voting, because this is all gonna be tore up.
Yeah, well,
Can't do
yeah.
anything about it. It's
Yeah.
already in stone.
Yeah,
We
well,
can't do anything about it.
we'll work on it.
In-
I promise you. That's all we can do.
I've
So-
also convoluted this, that what we're voting on is not the building. This is more water retention and hookups and other things.
Right.
I've been on the board for the past 2 years, and I am very interested in the building, and was just taking the chance to talk to the engineer about it. That's not what this is about.
Right.
But to this point that they're bringing up for me, into our financial plan, that, our not even our financial plan, our financial assessment, I can't stress enough that I am fearful of the amount of money we're gonna borrow, the progression of rate increases, and the not very high level of satisfaction of the boat slip owners that we have. And I think we are literally a dip in the economy away from something the township has never seen, is revenue problems from the marina. And I know it's very pessimistic, but having done collections in 2008 and ran down people in a northern Michigan resort community who didn't want to pay their association dues, these guys they don't own lots. They're not tied to us. When they're gone, we're stuck. And it's never happened, and it doesn't seem like it's ever gonna happen, but it could. And if we got a $2 million or a $3 million note, and for the first time in our lives, in the township's history, that marina's not full, I am concerned. And I know you've heard me say it, but I'll say it again, and I'm particularly, because I've got some people here complaining that they're not completely satisfied. And it's not just about money they're complaining about. They're complaining about the service they're getting.
And the hay dock's all rotten, it seems like you replaced the dock before you, and then that's where the money comes from, the dock, and it's like you ran a house off for 25 years, and you don't do any maintenance. Like what, you know?
That is part of the financial problem, is we are planning to do a dock. That's part of what, we had a really good financial assessment that kind of brought everything into us, and it's a little scary. But it's.
Right.
I am curious to wonder why the Harbor Master House was the first thing done when they had just built a Harbor Master House. You know, I don't think that you guys really hear what the slip holders are feeling or thinking. I really don't. I'm sorry. I
No.
shouldn't say that.
I'm glad that some of what I know, I used to be down there a lot, there's more dissatisfaction than I think the board realizes.
Lot of dissatisfaction.
So,
Okay.
that's all. Sorry to derail
No, you're
that
good.
from my point.
You're good. You know, as long as we're discussing that, I will talk to the harbor master again and see if we can do better on our communication. So, I mean, I will.
I can either get up and do my next 2-minute speech that I wrote while I was sitting here.
If
or
you
I'll
don't mind.
just tell you right now.
Well,
You guys, you need a college intern. Get a communications college intern in there. Take one of your best employees they have and start training. I'll help them.
Okay.
I'm a digital media teacher.
Okay.
How hard is it to do this? It's just
Okay.
that someone needs to be assigned to it. It needs to be someone who has that technological skill
so,
set.
so why don't you and I sit down in the near future and we'll try to figure that out and get that done.
Excellent.
Would you
Thank
be good with
so
that?
much. I just think
Okay.
that alone
Let's
would
do that.
increase the satisfaction of voters.
You can come in, we can sit down and we can work it all out and we'll get it
I
done.
tried to talk to you 3 times last year. I could never do it.
To me?
Yeah. I came in, I made 3 appointments, never, I was never, he's not here, when
Oh.
will he be here? We don't know. 3
Well, I can give you my calendar of the meetings that I have. So, I mean, anytime anybody wants to see me or talk to me, they can call here. I will meet you anytime. You can ask these guys, evenings, weekends, anytime. If you just show up, I might not be here because I do have Board of Public Works,
I
TTCI,
understand, but I was
LPEF.
not given that.
Yeah, so, well, you can call me, you can email me, anytime.
All right, Jeff, I'm gonna make an appointment.
Okay.
So we're hearing that in the notes.
Okay.
And we're gonna work on
Perfect.
increased communication. And Kyle, I'm
If-
gonna follow up with some emails with you because I think
Okay.
you're on the right track of, there's a lot of folks saying, and you have to remember that some of us we don't predate when this whole plan started, and so there's a lot of people that are like,
Sure.
what is going on?
Sure.
You know, it's just, again, a lack of communication and then it cycles.
Right.
It just creates a culture of negativity.
Okay, so if you hang around till after the meeting adjourns, we'll set up a meeting tonight.
Perfect.
Okay,
Okay.
so we have a motion, we've had lots of lively discussion. Does anybody remember what the motion was? Just to pass the resolution? Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we need a roll call vote.
Jerry Lautner?
Yes.
Kyle Travis?
Yes.
Dave Darga?
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and Jeff Shaw.
Yes, motion passes, thank you. TTCI, Metropolitan Planning Organization Intergovernmental Agreement, and the Intermunicipality Committee Resolution. So I sent the TTCI Planning Organization Intergovernmental Agreement to Brian Graham. He looked at it, he had a couple of concerns, so this resolution addresses his concerns. So essentially, I don't want this to get to be a long discussion, but the last meeting we had at TTCI, the City of Traverse City and Grand Traverse County Road Commission wanted to have more votes than everybody else. And they were outvoted by all the townships to say we should all have even votes, which they didn't like very much. So the short version is, we don't, and none of us know if the city or if Grand Traverse County is going to even pass this to be participating in it. But we don't need them because Beta represents at least 75% of the transportation area, which the city came in saying, well, if you don't have us, you're not going to have it covered. But the way it works is if any participant in this organization covers that population, then the organization is valid, and Beta does that. So Beta checks that box, so even without them, we can do this. It would be great if they change their mind, which I think they're convinced now that they need to participate in this, because otherwise, if Grand Traverse County Road Commission doesn't do it, then all the money goes to Leelanau County, which is us. So, anyway, so potentially this is gonna bring
I
millions.
don't need sidewalks on my road.
Yeah. Sidewalks all the way to Bingham. No. So anyway, potentially there's a whole bunch of money that could be coming our way if we participate with this. The downside of it is if we want an even vote, it's gonna cost us approximately $3,700 as opposed to the $1,000 that we spend a year now. $3,700 is still, in my view, well worth being part of this. So that's the spiel on that. So do you guys have questions? I know we've been talking about this for a long time, coming our way.
So would we need to approve?
We need the intergovernmental agreement. You guys need to approve me signing that once I go back to that next meeting, and all of the other governmental agencies that are involved, transportation agencies involved, they each have to sign this intergovernmental agreement. And then we need a motion for the intermunicipality committee resolution.
Okay, I'd make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the intergovernmental agreement with Traverse Transportation Coordinating Initiative and to authorize the resolution to establish an interim municipality committee under Michigan Public
Hold on.
Act.
I'm
Oops.
sorry, let's break that up.
Yeah, probably should do
Okay,
two.
break
Not resolution.
Yeah, let's do two. So the first one,
Yep.
you made the motion for the intergovernmental agreement. We got a motion and support. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
I'll vote yes. Terry Lautner,
It's a very difficult yes.
Dave Darga.
Yes.
Kyle Trevis.
Yes.
And Jeff Shaw.
Yes, your vote still counts the same, Terry.
Even if it was just that.
Okay, now the resolution.
I move to adopt Resolution 12 of 2023, resolution to establish an intermunicipality committee under Michigan Public Act 200 of 1957 for purposes of transportation planning in the Traverse Study Area.
Support.
Motion and support. Any more discussion about this one?
So do you promise me it's not gonna back up to Cherry Bond? If we do this.
Yeah. That's gonna happen whether we do this or not
Yep.
with the project in 2025, but.
Yeah. Okay.
So we had a motion and support?
Yes.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
You know, I hope they do stuff instead of just do studies and stuff.
Yeah,
You know, I look at Grand Traverse County, and I go down Gray Road every once in a while.
mhm.
And at the end of Gray Road, there was a lot for sale right in the corner. And that would be a perfect place for a roundabout, because in the morning, you've got all the people turning left onto Cedar Run. And in that location, I don't know why the road commission didn't buy that lot. And, you know, they're talking roundabouts all over Grand Traverse County, but none there. I've not heard them talk about one there, and this is over there in Grand Traverse County, but Secor Road and West Silver Lake Road. I feel for everyone that lives on South Long Lake and has to drive Secor Road to get onto those locations, roundabouts work great. The one at M115 and 37 down at Music, that works great, because there's no pedestrians.
Right.
You know, down here on the corner, I don't know how they're gonna deal with the pedestrians
Yeah.
If all the pedestrians are gonna be on the water side there, if they are, that's okay, but if you start running pedestrians through a roundabout, you're nuts.
Yeah, Connie and I had this
Defeated the
discussion
whole-
earlier, yeah,
Whole
and
purpose of a
and
roundabout.
during that meeting with MDOT, we had a lot of discussion about that, because they are trying to have pedestrians cross at that resolution, across M72 and across M22, and it defeats the whole purpose.
It does.
So they're still figuring that out. Quite honestly, they don't have the funding they need, so they may eliminate the roundabout altogether. That's kind of where they're at, so they're still
You
trying to
might
get funding.
think about putting two lanes on M22 a little further north, up
Yeah.
to.
They're gonna try to do that
That
up
would
to the Holiday gas station. It's not a long ways, but that's
Well,
about as far as they can
Should
go.
be thinking more up to Carter Road or beyond. 'cause-
Yeah, they don't have the
And
room.
I don't drive that road because I
Yeah.
don't want to drive it, because I don't care to get into the traffic down there.
Yep,
But I did drive it the other day, and I was backed up from the speedway to the light there. That
Yep.
told me I should have got my gas at the speedway and come back up Cherry Bend Road, or come
Yep.
back up
And that's when it's
Grandview
not
Road.
busy, you're backed up that far.
Yeah.
they're in front of my, they're in front of my house all the time,
So-
so. All right, so we have, motion and support. Any other discussion about the resolution? Roll call vote, please.
Kyle Travis,
Yes.
Dave Darga.
Yes.
Terry Lautner.
I'll vote yes if Jeff advocates for us.
Okay. And I'll vote yes, Jeff Shaw.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Terry, I appreciate that. All right, security cameras for the township hall, we had talked about this. All this resolution is allowing me to apply for the grant from Power Plan. They have up to $5,000 for a risk reduction grant. The cycle is in August. We should be a really good candidate for that. It'd be really nice to get that to pay for some security cameras out here and all that stuff. So we're gonna hide the door closers too, because every time our sheriff walks in, he whacks his head on them. And there's door closers that are inside the door. So, anyway, the doors are all set up for that, so it should be a simple thing, but that's gonna be part of this too. So,
So these are for just this building here?
yes,
Inside and outside?
just
or
outside.
Just outside?
Parking lots, they were gonna give me a grant, I've got quotes coming from several different places, which I'll bring back to you guys.
Yeah.
This is just to allow us to apply for the grant. I also have a couple of them doing quotes for the pavilion right down here, just to see what it would be.
We don't have anything there now?
No, we have a couple of fake ones. We have a couple of fake ones.
We're on TV there.
We do know that.
Is this thing working? Crap.
Well, we have real ones down at the park, I know.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but up here we don't, and
We've
so
never
we
really
figured,
had a reason to monitor them, have we?
you know, somebody
Couple times.
somebody spray painted the brick down here
Oh, they
last
did.
year, and some kids have rode their skateboards on top of the picnic tables and kind of messed them up a little bit. So
They're
I just
bad.
thought I'd see how much they were, and if we have enough in the grant money, it'd be nice to
It's the
include them.
future.
Yeah, so that's what this is. It's not asking you for any money stuff, it's just allowing me to apply for the grant.
Yeah, that's good.
I'll move to adopt Resolution 11 of 2023.
I'll support it.
Motion and support. You guys have any other questions or discussion about that?
No.
Roll call, please, Connie.
I'll vote yes, Dave Darga.
Yes.
Terry Lautner.
Yes.
Kyle Travis,
Yes.
Jeff Shaw.
Yes. Item 10E is a couple of appointments. Ray Herring has been on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a long, long time. His health is not good. He has a lot of trouble leaving his home. So Jeff Beamsley would like to serve, and I'm going to send Ray a really nice letter saying thanks for all your years of service.
Has he
And,
resigned? Pretty much.
Yeah, informally, I asked him several months ago, and he said when his term is up, he'd like to be done.
Good,
So,
great. I'd make a motion to approve both Judy Platt and Jeff Beamsley to the appropriate zoning board of appeals and board of review. Combining them both, is that right?
yeah, yep, you got him.
Support.
Motion and support. Anybody have any questions or anything? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item 11, payment of invoices.
Make a motion to pay the invoices in the amount of $66,659.02.
Support.
Motion and support. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item 12, extended public comment. Would you guys like to actually come up to the podium and say anything else, or? Okay. See?
Yes, we would, but we don't.
We won't, I wrote a 2-minute speech while I sat here.
Okay.
Gave you the short.
So it is 7:25 and this meeting is adjourned.